President Biden remains in isolation 2 days after testing positive for COVID again in what doctors are calling a rebound case.
Yeah, what's interesting is the president appeared to be over his bout with the virus after testing negative last week. Apparently not the case. Mr. Biden's physician says a rebound case can happen when patients have been treated with the antiviral drug Paxlovid. That's common. The White House says he is not experiencing any symptoms. The president is expected to continue working while in isolation.
Meanwhile, overseas, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi spoke with officials in Singapore to kick off the start of her congressional tour of Asia. Pelosi will be visiting Malaysia, South Korea, and Japan to discuss the war in Ukraine, coronavirus, and climate change. However, it is still unclear whether she's going to be stopping in Taiwan during her trip.
Let's bring in our friend and neighbor, CBS News Chief Washington Correspondent Major Garrett, for more on this. Major, always great to see you. And we are talking about neighborly relations in a way. I want to begin by asking about this Speaker Pelosi's trip to Asia. Beijing threatening to retaliate. I think the language was on the lines of don't play with fire if Speaker Pelosi did stop in Taiwan. What are the stakes here? What type of ramifications could she and the U.S. face if this does happen?
Excellent questions all. Before I get to them, I just want to let the audience know there is a rather large construction project going on here at the White House just to my left. That's why we have the stick microphone, and you might be able to hear that. I will do my best to speak over it. A couple of things to consider about Taiwan. First of all, the Speaker of the House represents the House of Representatives and is a figure of importance in the U.S. government independent of the White House. And as the White House has said over and over again, Speaker Pelosi or any Speaker of the House of Representatives sets his or her own travel schedule. The White House does not coordinate. The White House does not interfere. Have there been some behind-the-scenes conversations about the diplomatic fragility of this particular moment with China? Yes. And the White House has fully briefed the Speaker about all the things the Chinese government has said, some of them a little on the hostile side about a potential visit to Taiwan. But the White House is publicly not discouraging it at all, saying if she goes, that's her business, and the U.S. government will coordinate with her as appropriate. So that's point one. Point two, why is Taiwan a point of friction between the United States and China? Because China considers it part of China. Taiwan does not. Taiwan is a democracy, but the United States, for decades, has adhered to a one-China policy, which creates what we can best describe as strategic ambiguity. Taiwan is a democracy which buys arms from the United States. Many politicians, members of Congress, senators go to Taiwan with some frequency. But Speaker Pelosi is different for a couple of reasons. She's the #1 leader of the House of Representatives and has a long-standing grievance with China over its human rights record, something the Chinese government long remembers, and bitterly so. So they, meaning the Chinese government, have said all sorts of things in the last couple of days about what a visit from the Speaker would mean on Taiwan, likening it to some sort of act of aggression, which the United States does not accept, and basically says, through various senior administration officials, look, it's the Chinese who've been ramping up all the rhetoric about this, not the United States. This would be another visit from another prominent lawmaker in America, not uncommon in the history of U.S.-Taiwanese relations, but still, the Chinese have made this seem like a much bigger deal. And we will see how it plays out. The Speaker's office, for its purposes, has said we are not commenting one way or the other. There is a regional visit that the Speaker is making, and if she touches down in Taiwan, we'll notify you. So, something to keep track of. But those two things, the White House doesn't control or influence or govern the schedule of the Speaker, and this backdrop of strategic ambiguity and all this ramped up rhetoric from China is why we are where we are.
By the way, Major, that whole construction situation has been vexing me for weeks, so you're doing a great job. And switching gears, they stopped a little bit there. We know that the president remains COVID positive in what doctors are now calling a rebound case. So any word about possible treatments or those people who were in close contact to him prior to him testing positive again?
So the word here from the president's physician is he has no symptoms, so he's not getting any additional treatment. He's just in this awkward place, this very disruptive place of testing positive after having tested for 2 days negative, Thursday and Friday of last week. So the president isn't receiving any particular any intervention of any kind because he has no symptoms. He's just testing positive. It's annoying and it's disruptive, but it is part and parcel of this rebound syndrome that some small number of Americans who have contracted COVID through the Omicron BA.5 variant and then taken Paxlovid, this antiviral, have fallen into. But the president, being the leader of the free world, 79 years old, obviously under close physician supervision, but there's nothing really wrong with him, and he just has to wait out the period until he tests negative again. As for the close contacts, the White House said there were 6 after he had tested negative and was sort of reemerging into full duties. They've all tested negative. The First Lady has also tested negative. She's tested negative throughout the entire process and currently is in Wilmington, Delaware. Hasn't been with the president for several days. So the president, isolating just behind me in the residence, working the phones, getting work done as best as he can.
Always great to have your insight, Major. We wish you a quiet, construction-free afternoon. Thank you so much, Major Garrett.